Aloha, everyone, and welcome back to Awakening to the Magic of the Menstrual Cycle. I have the beautiful Miss Maraya Brown and Missy Ray here from Beyond the Red Tent today. Welcome, ladies. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks.
We're happy to be here.
Did you say aloha? Are you in Hawaii?
I was born there. That's my home state.
All right, fun.
I'm not there right now, but
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that part. That's fun. I lived there a long time.
I think I read that in your bio, actually. That's really awesome. There's several speakers in this summit who have spent time there, so that's really special. I'm actually wearing one of my flowers from there right now.
Awesome.
Okay, so I would love if you would just give us a little bit of an introduction to what Beyond the Red Tent is.
I'm going to let Maraya do that because I have postpartum brain.
Sure. Beyond the Red Tent is a place where women can gather virtually, and also we do yearly retreats, but it's predominantly virtual. It's an education and connection platform. If you imagine, or my idea of the positive aspects of the history of the Red Tent is this idea of a space, a safe container that is for women and by women across generational lines, where they can communicate with one another, with questions, with their vulnerability, with their realness, honoring women's stories, but also bringing in vetted experts to help us all learn more about our women's health journey. And Missy and I, for both of us, it's important that those experts cover mind, body, and spirit. We vet them, and then once a week, we interview them and share that with the community. There's a Facebook group. You can go to Beyond the Red Tent. There's close to right around 14,000 women there. We also have a much more intimate membership, and I'll just go ahead and say it for everyone that's part of this summit. We're giving you, if you buy the year-long membership, we're giving you that 20% discount and the coupon code you can get with the summit. But it is very sweet and small and intimate. And then with everyone all the vetted experts that we interview, we have a little bit of extra juicy stuff that they then share into the membership that maybe they wouldn't share in a large forum. Anything else you want to add, Missy?
No, I mean, I think we're still growing that really sweet membership community. And I think that it's going to turn into something really special. We have our large group on Facebook can be a little bit overwhelming for some people because there's almost 14,000 women in there. So it's nice to have the smaller group for those women that maybe don't feel comfortable sharing in that large of a space.
Yeah. And for those that aren't on social media at all, there's also a website. So for members, they have access to all the recorded interviews. I mean, you could go to town for days and weeks and months just learning. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds like a really beautiful platform that you two have put together.
We enjoy it. It was not a premeditated thing. It birthed itself.
Oh.
And I'm eating. You'll have to, we're the realities of postpartum. I'm shoving food in my mouth when I can.
I'm sure everyone would be understanding of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for going over that. And thank you so much for offering a discount to the audience of this summit. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
And 14,000 women. Yeah, that's a lot of women.
It is.
So it's good that you have a more intimate option for that. And gosh, I just can't take my eyes off of that beautiful baby.
I know. Here, we'll spotlight him for a second. This is Saren.
Hi, Saren.
His name means star. He's our little star baby.
He's so fresh.
He's very fresh. He is 1 week old today.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's a very special energy to have on the show. I feel very blessed to have both of you here with us.
Yeah, when we had talked about bringing the postpartum energy in, I said, well, let me reach out to Missy and see if she'd be open, because she's currently in the portal.
I am, indeed.
Yeah, that sounded really really special to me, and not even something that I would have even considered as a possibility. I personally haven't had a baby yet, but I have been very passionate about like natural birth and home birth and just all the things that you know, like make up a woman's journey through life. And the initiation into motherhood is a really big one. So I'm grateful to have you here. And that is actually a piece that I wanted to include in this summit, even though it's not necessarily part of the menstrual cycle. It is a really important part of the journey of women. So I wanted to talk to both of you about that, because both of you are mothers, yes?
Yep.
Have you both done home births?
Yeah, we have all 6 of mine have been at home, and I'll let Maraya speak to hers. But,
well, and go ahead.
I was going to say, and you're also a midwife, so you have that perspective as well, which is really lovely.
Yeah, yeah. So I've had 3 home births and 1 miscarriage out in the forest. And I've been attending births for 20 years. Home, birthing center, hospital, some variation of hanging from trees. Yeah. So I think between the 2 of us, that's 7 and 4, so 11 home births, including our miscarriages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a big part of, you know, if a woman wants to conceive, it's a big part of your life, you know, from the moment you make that decision to conceive, your menstrual cycle takes on a whole new meaning also. You know, it's not just about the cycle of your ebb and flow with, you know, each month, but you have more intention with it. Especially, you know, for a lot of mamas who are getting older and have to put some energy into tracking their cycle and monitoring their cycle and, you know, checking cervical mucus and all that to really get in tune with your body so that you can make a baby. And it can be quite a journey for a lot of people. I'm grateful that it's come easily for us. This was a surprise. This was me not throwing caution to the wind when I knew I was fertile. But having this idea like, oh, I'm 42, you know, it wouldn't happen. We're fine. And clearly we got a baby out of it.
Well, and your point is, I love what you brought up, Missy, because it makes me think of, you know, of course, menstruation, we think of bleeding and fertility, but also there's the menstruation and the cleaning out of the uterus postpartum and that continual bleeding. And then into the chapter of perimenopause and menopause and that kind of new rhythm and kind of sometimes irregular rhythm in the preparation to being done. But then even for women that are after they're done actually bleeding, they still have their rhythm.
Right.
It's still part of our connection with the moon and with the planet and with other women, and it's just not so external because there isn't necessarily blood coming out.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm in that bleeding after childbirth phase, so that lasts for a while. Kind of has varied for me with each kid, but you know, I anticipate I'll be bleeding for the next couple weeks, and it's, you know, the beautiful thing about the postpartum blood is that it's a gauge for you. Like I love that. I got up yesterday and did a little bit more than I had been doing the past week, and you immediately see it in your flow. And so I can tell, like, okay, maybe that's a little too much. Dial it back in, go back to resting a little bit more. And so if you're paying attention during the postpartum period, that the blood is the gauge for whether or not you're doing too much, because rest is so much more important than I ever knew, especially with my first 4, I would say, children. And then as I got a little bit older and started having babies older, I kind of out of necessity, but just learning, like, what does my body really need? Because it's easy to push it back when you're young and you can kind of power through it. But, you you know, being a woman, I was almost 40 with my fifth, and then being 43 when he was born, really wanting to do it and honor my body and what my body needs. And it's a lot more rest than you think, like, which is hard in our day and age. It's hard in our busy world to say,
hard.
okay, I'm going to stick to my bed for like a week or 2 weeks. And then I'm going to not leave the house for 30 to 40 days. You know, that's a big commitment to yourself, really.
And an important commitment.
Mm-hmm.
You would then get to reap the benefits or handle the challenges if we don't honor that, or if we do honor that for the rest of our lifetime with that child and with our bodies.
Yeah. And Maraya, what have you seen with the women who you've worked with as a midwife? Have you seen a difference with the women who take their 40 days versus the women who haven't?
Absolutely. It's not just seeing the difference in the women and how their bodies recover, but also the women's nervous systems. Like, there's a lot of value. I said this when Angel and I were preparing for the summit, when you had asked us to share. And as a midwife attending births, there was always this like section in childbirth where I'd go, oh wow, it was right around transition. So right around when they're like 6 to 8 centimeters, it's as though the women kind of go somewhere else. It's this really intense chapter. And I always kind of would watch this place where it would get so intense, and there's like the adrenaline rush, and I don't know if I'm going to do this, and that's always the moment, I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. And then it's like they go, and then there's a lull, and then there's this moment where it's as though they come back, but they come back with their lioness and this fierceness, and then it's the energy of bringing the baby out. And I just observed it as a midwife and stayed curious. And then when I've given birth all 3 times, it's experiencing it. I feel like it's as though we actually kind of go between realms. We leave, and it's like we go out and have some agreement with this baby that's coming into the cosmos of, all right, now it's time. It makes me emotional to say it. Now it's time. Your soul is coming in now. Like, your body's ready, your lungs are ready. Now we're making our agreement, we're making that bond, and it's time. And we come back together, intertwined, and then there's the actual energy of bringing the baby out of the womb and up. But the other piece to it is, as a midwife, it's, you know, here's your baby, I'll see you for a postpartum visit, whatever that looks like. Being the mom and the receiving end, I felt like I was still between realms for a chunk of time. It was like I was here in the physical body and here on this planet in this space, but also the baby and I were still kind of tapped into that other space. And I think the more we can hold that sacred. So I did the 40 days inside. Luckily, with the last birth, there were big stairs in my house. So I literally did not go downstairs for a week. I just stayed up here. And I think that there's so much value in allowing that bubble, that sanctity to stay strong, but also allowing our bodies to slowly recover. And if the main focus is in that time is we take advantage of the oxytocin that's at its peak, and we get to just bond and fall deeply in love and enjoy the benefit of kind of being between realms and being in that really intuitive, juicy, fluid space. And the babies respond better. I feel like their nervous systems are just a little bit more settled.
Yeah, I've only done the 40 days with my last 2, and it was a much different experience, both for me and in watching my babies. And I think that bonding piece, Maraya, is a huge piece of it. That there's just not a lot of outside stimulus happening. So it's, you know, it really is bonding, not just mama and baby, but the family unit, and solidifying, you know, if you have other children and partner and all of that, it's a really special, sacred time. And physically, you know, I have a dear friend who specializes in postpartum care and training health workers for postpartum. And, you know, she said that the physical rest for the first week to 2 weeks of really getting up to go to the bathroom, getting up to get food if nobody else will bring it to you, but you're primarily in bed, is that rest actually allows your internal organs to go back into their proper position. And when you get up and you start doing too soon after childbirth, that's when we have a lot of issues, physical issues that start to come up and that can last way past the postpartum period. So, taking that time to just allow your body to come back.
Absolutely. I feel like you and I could keep talking forever. We're not letting her ask any questions. But even just the simple thing of how we get out of the bed.
Right.
With my number 2, number 1 was 20 months old, and I still was in this place of a mom. I need to care for my first child. And even though I was inside, I did too much too fast. And postpartum, my pubic symphysis separated. And so then I had that journey of recovering there. And so with number 3, I really was more aware of even getting out of the bed to go to the bathroom, keeping my ankles and knees and hips aligned and being so cautious of those movements, trusting that my body is slowly coming back to some new semblance, what the bones, the internal organs, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really amazing perspectives to share that I would not have access to if you guys weren't sharing them right now. I mean, I know that the body goes through an insane amount of changes from that hormone that's released that kind of like makes your joints loose.
Relaxin.
That, and I wouldn't even think about the fact that, yeah, your organs need to go back into their normal place because they've all been squished and out of alignment. And
your abdominal muscles, there's that thing called diastasis recti. When you see like really muscular people with a 6-pack, they have that line down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
As our bellies stretch, as the baby's growing, the muscles separate often a little bit, and it can be 1 finger breadth, 2, even as much as 4 finger breadths distance between those. And so that's why in so many cultures they wrap through pregnancy, wrap postpartum, wrap now, and help those muscles slowly come back. And don't overdo it. Women go, okay, I have to get my pre-pregnant body back. I need to do my sit-ups. No. You need to let things slowly come back and trust that the body will come back. It will come back in its new form, its new beautiful motherly form.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
What I understand, you're meeting a new version of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much.
It's not always easy because it's not, you go from the youthful maiden to the mother, and there's a shift there, just like there is when you go from the mother to the crone. There are these shifts in our physical bodies as well as our emotional bodies that happen at those milestones. And it, it can be a little bit traumatizing too. Like, who is this woman, and whose body is this? Is this still me?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the majority of the suffering from my perspective comes in when a woman doesn't have that knowledge of the seasons of her life. So she doesn't know what to expect and how to be in right relationship with these different phases. And that's why, doing talks like this and speaking to those different stages, I think is very empowering for other women to hear, so that they know that it's totally natural and normal to not be the same version of yourself forever. And that, as a woman, we fluctuate, and there's also really beautiful gifts once you go through each initiation into motherhood and into the season of the crone. And I think it's really invaluable to talk to women who are further along the path, like you guys, to me, for instance, who have been birthing babies at home for years and have that in your bones, and have some perspective to offer somebody who's still in the phase of being a maiden and who wants to be a mother one day. And that is one of the main pieces of medicine that a red tent experience gives women, is supporting each other at different stages and sharing wisdom. And
it's one of the reasons why we were so passionate about bringing Beyond the Red Tent, is it's allowing hopefully a safe platform just for women across those generational lines, so that the conversations can happen. And sometimes there might be a woman in there that goes, that doesn't relate to me. But if you're in your early 20s and there's a woman in her 60s talking about her experience, open your ears, open your eyes, and pay attention, because you're learning about what might happen down the road. And although it might not feel relevant to you now, there's a lot of value in continuing those cross-generational lessons. And for the elders to be listening to the youngers and listening to their experience of it now, when the world is different now, but perpetually having that exchange so that we can continue to learn from one another and share. It also makes me think of, first of all, the change. That's the beauty of women. We're always changing. You know, the masculine, there's a reason why 9 to 5 worked for men. I mean, they're pretty darn consistent. Whereas for us, our hormones fluctuate all day, every day, and throughout our month and throughout each decade. And we can't, I mean, you know, with the course that I have, so much of it is helping women balance their hormones, but also feel turned on to their life, their lover, and themselves. And I say, well, what you were turned on to and by 10 years ago is not the same as now. We can't expect that the passion comes from the same place, because we're not coming from the same place. We're not the same today as we were yesterday. And then the other thing it makes me think of is when I did, when I was pregnant with number 2, I did this sacred pregnancy group, and the facilitator told a story about Inanna, I think was her name. I don't, and what I remember, and I don't even know if this is a real story, but this idea that it was a story of this queen who needed to go down to go find some answer to something. And every level that she went down, she had to take a piece of her regalia off. She had to take her crown off. She had to take her robe off, until she reached down to the base of where her answers were. She found herself totally nude. This queen who was accustomed to being covered in diamonds and jewels and all of her robes. And it took like 2 years or something for her to get down to this place. And then there, deep in the earth, was her answers. But then to come back up, it was the same journey of 2 years. And on her way up, she was given the opportunity to choose what she put back on. And I feel like that's our journey of becoming mothers. And then we get the opportunity to come back up and choose what we put back on, and also acknowledge that it takes time. So often that 2-year period, at that 2-year mark, it's like, okay, maybe I'm just about done breastfeeding. Maybe I feel like my body is back to this normal homeostasis of this new version of myself. And look at these new pieces that I've put on. These new definitions of who I am.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you. There is just so much really important medicine and storytelling, especially stories like that. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to see so many more stories like that out on the planet.
I know, right?
Missy, I would like to ask you, from your own experience, what some of the differences have been for you in the actual birthing experience, from like your first baby to the one you just birthed.
Oh, wow. Besides a large span of years. So with my first, I was really young. I was 19 when he was born. And I think, though, I think most women with their first baby have a moment, because it's sensation unlike anything that you've ever experienced, and it's pretty indescribable. And I had a moment with my first one where I actually thought, I'm going to die. Like I'm not going to make it, and that's okay, as long as the baby's fine. Like I kind of made my peace with God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, in that space that Maraya was talking about, of being between worlds and just surrendering and going, okay, I'm not going to come out of this alive. And I think that so many women with their first baby have had that feeling. And I think that that is the death. There is a death, you know, it's that death of the maiden moving into the role of mother. And yeah, you are kind of dying and rebirthing in that moment with your first child. And I don't know that women feel it if they aren't having a natural childbirth, but when you're allowing your body to go through all of the phases and the, you know, the sensations and the hormonal fluctuations of natural childbirth, there is that feeling of leaving your old self behind and coming back a new being. So that was pretty profound with the first one. It was a long labor, you know, like 36 hours and 3 hours of pushing. And so it's, you know, it's a lot of work. It was hard. The second one was probably my only birth where I would say I didn't have a sensation of pain. It was just intense, and I breathed him out. I didn't actually push that baby out, which was interesting. And then baby number 3 was really quick, really, really intense. I had 2 little kids, and that one, I couldn't actually go into that other world because I was home alone with 2 little kids, changing diapers, feeding them, moaning through contractions, trying not to push a baby out before the midwife got there. And so I had to stay pretty present, but I do remember a couple moments where I let myself kind of go internal. And but that one was like a freight train kind of hit me, you know, 1 hour start to finish, and the midwife barely got there on time. And that was intense. I think I was 23 when I had her. And then there was a long gap and a divorce, and, you know, my kids growing up and learning how to mother and how to mother, you know, in my own way. So I got to journey through motherhood up until I think my oldest was, let's see, 16 when I had my next baby. So I had a 16, 14, and a 12-year-old when I remarried and had my 4th baby. And so it was a very different experience knowing what was coming and how quickly it goes. There's been a savoring with these last 3 that I didn't do with the first 3. You know, it was the first 3, it was like, okay, I just got to get through this. I got to get through this. This is intense. It's hard having little kids, and they're going to grow up. They're going to grow up, you know, just kind of like getting through each day.
Yeah.
And so when number 4 rolled around, I was more intentional and more present to this phase and to the baby phase. And my birth with number 4 was lovely. It was like, I don't know, maybe a 3 or 4 hour total birth. And she was born in the water. She was my first home or water birth. And then baby number 5 was a little bit more challenging, but still, I would say a really easy, you know, the more babies you have, they kind of are, not that everybody jokes they fall out. They've never fallen out for me. I have to push babies out. They don't just slide out, except for number 2 kind of did. But the last 3 were similar. His birth was quick. His birth was another quick birth, but because of the circumstances, I didn't feel like that freight train had hit me. It was the middle of the night. The kids were in bed. So I got to wake up and feel, you know, I kind of had some contractions that they just felt like my practice contractions had felt. When you've had a lot of babies, you have a lot of buildup, workup to the actual real thing happening. So by the time I realized, okay, now this feels like a real contraction that I'm going to have to moan through, it was about an hour until he was born from that point. But it was so quiet, and we just had candles lit, and then, you know, brought our kids up at the last minute. And so it didn't feel overwhelming like that other birth that was so fast. But I didn't leave with him. You know, Maraya was talking about that space where you kind of do leave. There wasn't really time for that. So I was really present the whole time with him, enough to, I got to show this though. Look at this. I gotta interrupt my talking to show you milk face. Yeah, so I was really present, which was kind of fun because when his head came out and I felt the cord, but I was able to tell my husband how to loop the cord over his head so that he could really participate in some aspect of it. And then, now I'm kind of in that in between. Now I'm in the bubble. But they've all been beautiful. They've all been beautiful. They've all been pretty much complication free. My fifth one I have on YouTube, that if you go to my YouTube, you can see his birth, and he had a nuchal cord around twice. And so that's a good video where you can see, us unlooping the cord. And then it took him a little while to get started breathing, but it's a beautiful way to, I think so many people are worried about that. Oh, what if the cord's around their neck? It's not a big deal. Like, it just shows that it's normal. And so I've had lovely home births, and I am so grateful that I got to do it at home with all of them. It just can't imagine any other way. I've been at lots of hospital births as a doula, and for me, I feel a lot safer at home.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you were able to birth in the way that felt right for you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really big
deal. And this is the last one. I say that, I've said that now for 2 babies. This is the last one.
You better start checking your mucus, Missy.
I know.
So on that note, thank you so much for sharing that. I have heard from many women that oftentimes the first child, the birthing, the labor is a lot longer because your body is doing it for the first time. And I was just thinking, you've done it 6 times now, so your body probably knows what it's doing at this point.
Yeah. And there's some things too. I want to show you my placenta pills really quickly, because people weren't doing this when I had my first 3 babies, but you can see this is my placenta encapsulated. And it has made a big difference for me in how I feel postpartum. With the babies that I've had these for, less bleeding, less hormonal fluctuations, less night sweats, less baby blues, that a lot of women get the sadness, the minor depression. For me, these are like miracle cure for all of that. So wow. I just want to shout out for, it might seem weird, but encapsulate your placenta.
I'll second that. I've even saved, I ate some of mine raw right away in a smoothie. I've cooked a placenta for a woman who didn't want to encapsulate it. I saw her years later, and she still says she remembers that meal. It was like I sauteed and with some eggs and she's like, I wish you could come over and make that breakfast again. But for my encapsulated placenta, I've saved some. I keep it in the freezer for when I feel like I'm really in the journey of menopause. Because I've learned, I think it's going to be valuable.
Yeah, so, a lot of women do save them. I might save some of these, but it makes such a difference for me in the first 4 to 6 weeks that I usually end up pounding them all.
Yeah.
It's really awesome to hear that it's made such a difference for you, and that's not something that you can just go out and buy, so it's pretty special.
And even if you have a hospital birth, you can sign a medical release and just make sure you specify that you want to take the placenta home. And if they say it's biohazard waste and you're not allowed to, you still have the right to. So if it's something that's important to you, there's ways around it. And you just sign a release and bring a cooler if you're having a hospital birth, and have a way to transport it home. And they'll put it in a biohazard bag. And some people just take it home and they plant it under a tree. I mean, there's lots of variations, but I'm going to do a big, big cheers to, what is it? Placentophagy. I think ingest your placenta.
Yeah. And you can just Google placenta encapsulation in your area. Look for someone who's certified, who's doing it in a way that's, it's blood products. So you want to have someone who's doing it the right way and keeping it sterile and clean. And but there are lots of people out there doing it. So
some will do it like what I've been taught as a Chinese medicine way, where they steam it with specific herbs, and that's one option. And others just simply dehydrate the placenta, grind it up, and encapsulate it. And I think any way is great.
It's kind of weird, but I think it's cool.
And animals in the wild do it too. And if you've ever seen a dog or a cat give birth, what do? They eat the placenta and they eat the amniotic sac, they lick their babies. Mm-hmm. So I think, well, I won't go there, but.
I saw a video of a woman, we were joking about the licking the babies thing, and there was a video of a woman who just had her baby and she licked her baby's face. And I was like, that's what I was talking about, licking just like an animal would, just licking your baby.
I think it's beautiful for a woman to birth in whatever way feels right for them personally.
Yep, absolutely. You have to be where you feel safe.
Yeah.
That's the big piece.
Yeah.
Definitely. I want to ask, because you were mentioning kind of like helping show your husband how to like take the cord from around the baby's neck. I would love it if either one of you felt like sharing from your perspective how the birthing experience is for your partner. Like, what's that like for the man, like without them being here? Like from your perspective, what have you observed in them, and how do you think that is for the man?
I have a lot to say. Missy, you want to start?
No, you can go. You go first.
Well, so I taught childbirth education classes for 5 years with couples. And all three of my births and also the miscarriage, my husband was really the one catching along with me. With the last birth, she was born in the water, and how old was he? So my 5-year-old, my 4-year-old, and my husband all caught the last one. So it was just us in the tub, and that's also on YouTube. But I looked at it yesterday. They took it down. I need to figure out what to do.
They took one of mine down. YouTube is taking down videos where women's nipples are showing.
Yeah, so I labor nude.
That's a whole different topic.
But it was a beautiful, beautiful birth to watch. So to answer your question, I think for men and women, it's really important that there's energy clearing of any fear around birth. There has to be an understanding of their own birth and the own conditioning that has been placed on them through their life around what birth is and isn't, because that energy is brought into whatever birth they're attending. And that goes to the same for anyone who's in the birth field. So your nurse, your mother, your friend, whomever you're inviting in to be around the birth, they are bringing their own energy and their preconceived notion around what birth is. And especially if there's any fear or past trauma, that has to be worked on. And I think it's a really important energy to hold sacred. And this is not a time to have your fan club out there, to come watch, but be very protective, knowing that if there is something going on in the labor where it's stalled, sometimes, yes, it's something physiological going on with mom and baby, but often it's the energy of that certain individual who's in the space and bringing that in. And so for the dads or dads to be, that's an important piece. I always say they have to put on their Teflon suit. So something that just everything bounces off of. Be prepared. When a woman's in labor, she might get fierce with her words. She might get very direct. She might hit you off. And then once you're there, and I tell the dads, just put on your Teflon suit. Be prepared for everything to just roll off. Don't take it personal. Be there to just simply offer support. And don't try to fix it. Men, generally the masculine way is, I have to go in and be the savior. I have to be the fix it. And this is one of those times where a man doesn't get to fix it. She can give her a back rub. She can go get water, help her stay fed and be the protector of the space. But at the end of the day, this is a journey for that woman and the baby to go through. And so a man has to be able to stay in his power of observance and just holding the container. I think about in Hawaii, remember when the mama whales would be in labor and you'd see the ring of the whales all around the outside, they'd all be breaching. There'd be this whole circumference, and it's that distraction going on while the mama's laboring. And they keep that ring for a chunk of time. I remember there was a whale that had given birth right near our home, and I would go down and visit her for a week at least. She was there hanging out close to shore with her baby, and I would always see the circumference out there of the whales breaching, holding down the fort. And so I that's for the dad, that's for the community, that's where we get to hold the container. We get to bring the meals to the mom afterwards and hold that sanctity of this container is still tight. And helping men, I think it's really important that a couple go through childbirth education classes together, and not just some like plastic, from the hospital, but find a really solid childbirth education course, maybe hypnobirthing, maybe something that if you have a midwife, ask your midwife, and dads be just as participatory in that, so they get some basic skills of here's a way to touch, and here's a way maybe not to touch, and here are some things that you can potentially do so that they have action. And I think the last piece is in labor. One of the beauties of having a doula, you know, when I've attended births as the second midwife or the doula, I'm also there for the dad. And sometimes they give and give and give, especially if it's a 1, 2, 3 day labor, everybody's exhausted. The dad also needs to be able to allow himself to rest.
Yeah.
And so the support team gets to be there to also support dad. And the last thing I want to say, because I always have a lot to say, is when a baby is in the womb, that baby is hearing dad's voice the whole time. So baby is feeling mom. And there's that palpable, energetic, constant connection where mom is breathing for baby and eating for baby. And there's that integral bond. And we know that as early as 10 weeks, these babies are listening and they hear dad's voice. So when baby first comes out, I often see babies respond so well to dad's voice. So if something's going on with mom, dad, take your shirt off, do skin to skin, allow that microbiome inoculation to be happening right from the beginning, allow the nervous system and respiratory and cardiovascular homeostasis to start with that skin to skin, and dad, talk to your baby.
Yeah.
Allow him or her to hear dad's voice, and you'll see them. They respond so well. I know that voice.
They do. I was just watching him with his dad this morning, and it's such a sweet connection, you know, and watching your partner bond with the child when you're able to kind of step back and just, you know, and they're gazing in each other's eyes and they're talking, and dads have a really beautiful way of incorporating movement into what they do with children in a way that women don't. And a lot of times moms are like, oh my gosh, that's too much with the baby too fast. But really it's instinctual for men. They're actually helping to get the baby's equilibrium programmed and helping them to feel the world in their own, you know, their own bodies separate from mom. And I was reading about how important that role is of the father and the way that they physically interact with the children, and that a mom should, you know, unless it seems obviously outrageously dangerous, but that a mother should allow the father to do those, you know, lots of dads do balancing things, and they'll hold the baby out kind of in the world more than a mom would. And and it's a really special, unique thing that I've watched men do with their children that I think is pretty sweet. And my partner was, you know, I've had 2 really supportive husbands and partners, and both relationships were different and both supported in different ways during the birth. My first husband was more interested in supporting me and my body, and my current husband, he supports me, but he really wanted to be involved with being one of the first to touch the baby's head and being involved in the birth process and helping catch the baby. That was really important to him with all three of them. He said, I want to be one of the first people to touch my baby too. so allowing him that, I think was really special for him. And he came into it, he was raised very differently than I was. And he was a C-section baby himself. And he lived in LA. And he said all of the women he knew, all of the women around him went to the hospital and had scheduled cesareans. And so when we started talking about birth, before we'd even gotten pregnant, and I said, I've had my babies at home, and if we ever have a child together, that's what we'll do. And he was like, I never heard of that. I never thought of that. And where I, everybody in my circle goes and has a cesarean, and I thought that's what birth was. So for him, it was a really kind of outside of the box idea, but he never pushed against it or said, this is, this doesn't feel safe. Even though he said he was scared with the first one, he trusted me, and he trusted that I knew where was best for me to birth. And he just kind of bit his tongue. And and then after the first one, then he felt fine with it. But
and you said it was okay.
Yeah.
That you had a hold of it.
Right.
That's really beautiful. I think that, because, you're birthing your baby and you're birthing yourself into, motherhood. And to think that the dad is also being initiated into a totally new version of himself, only he's not actually going through the physiological process of bringing the baby out. There's still a lot of shifting in him, I'm sure, that takes place. And I think that is
the same love hormones. My husband and I were watching a documentary where they actually were testing the hormones of fathers and mothers as they bonded with their new babies, and the father's oxytocin and the father's cortisol, they all shifted in similar ways that the mothers did when they were bonding with their child. So, everybody says only mothers are bonding in that kind of hormonal and brain change way, but the men were too, or the partners were as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, I'm so grateful that we have been able to talk about this stuff. You guys are giving me baby fever, seriously. That's something to talk about forever. But I'm not going to keep you guys all day long.
Baby fever is a real thing.
It definitely is. I was also just thinking about the fact that you're in your 40s and you successfully had a healthy, natural pregnancy and birth, and that is allowing you to be a beacon of hope for other women who still want to have a baby but aren't, in the, I don't know, whatever the window is that Western medicine says that you need to be in to be able to have a healthy pregnancy. So I really appreciate meeting living embodiments outside of those boxes that society puts on us. And
that's all it is a box.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Come on. When your obstetrician says, I gave birth to my last child at age 40, and an obstetrician now will consider someone like a geriatric. So, really? Come on. We are vibrant, amazing women. And when you talk about statistics, the average American woman is obese with diabetes, hypertension, and lives off of fast food. If you're a generally healthy woman that is taking care of yourself and eating well and moving your body, you're not a statistic. I'm sorry, that does not apply here.
Yeah.
I am a very vibrant, healthy woman who has regular orgasms and can keep up with my husband. And I also had 3 orgasmic births with my last one at age 40. Thank you very much. And all of them at home. And no, I've never had an ultrasound, actually. I've never had an OB ultrasound.
Wow. That's
and
beautiful.
so there's so much that can be told that needs to happen. But go back and go, is this really needed? Is this going to change my plan? Do I need some external fear telling me that I'm no longer safe or someone else is going to save me? I think that's one of the big themes that we perpetually infuse into Beyond the Red Tent, and especially with my course right now, is there's so much information out there. I think sometimes we don't really need more information. Even we just put on a summit too, and I'm like, it's just throwing out more information. Yes, sometimes information is valuable, especially when you're vetting where you're getting the information. But at the end of the day, we are all our individual experts. No one else knows what is best for me and my body and my family and my children. I know best, especially when I'm quieting down and listening in. And I think that that's something more than anything else that women, we have to be able to quiet down the external and asking everybody else. And maybe you're in a scenario where it makes sense to find some vetted experts to get some possible suggestions, and then quiet down and check in with your intuition and say, what is true for me? What is true for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. My whole family was saying, oh, we're so nervous. We're so scared. You're 43. You know, I don't know, something could go wrong. And I was like, you guys, my body knows how to have babies. It doesn't matter how old I am. Like, I trust that my body knows how to do this now. I've done it enough. And so I think if it's your first time and you're in your 40s, trust that even then your body knows what to do. Your body knows how to bleed. Your body knows how to cycle. Your body knows how to birth. Your body knows how to transition into menopause. And just like Maraya said, listen, hone in and listen and trust your own body and your own journey. And
it's a normal physiological process, just like menstruating and menopause and having a bowel movement and breathing. It is not an illness. It's not something to be fixed or changed. If we would like to exist as a species, we've got to procreate, my friends.
Yeah. And it's funny because everybody talks about the geriatric pregnancies, but if you talk to talk to your grandma, talk to your great grandmas, they were having babies still in their 40s. They were, and I think, I don't know why when it got weird, but all of a sudden it got weird. So let's take it back. It's not weird anymore.
It got weird a lot. But I'm grateful for women like you two who are, answering the call to go out and serve and help empower other women, because, when you're in new territory, if you've not ever given birth before, I think it's so important to have like grounded, experienced people around you to help you feel safe about it, because especially when you're in a vulnerable space, whether you're pregnant or sick or anything that is like requiring potential medical attention or just causing your body to be in a more vulnerable space, I think it's really easy to be influenced, especially when you're not educated on it. And it's so easy to like get wrapped up in fear if you don't know and you don't have the right, wise embodied support around you. So I just want to say thank you both for doing the work that you're doing right now and for being that beacon of light and trusting for other women so that they know that they can trust themselves and their bodies also.
Yeah. And if you are thinking about getting pregnant or there's a great documentary. It's called Birth as We Know It. It's put on by Birth Into Being. You can go to birthintobeing.com. Elena Tonetti is a Russian midwife. Her work is phenomenal. And that documentary of any other is worth purchasing, is worth watching.
Thank
powerful.
you.
It's powerful.
Watch that. Okay, so I know, Missy, you've got an appointment with your midwife soon, so we're gonna wrap it up. But Maraya, I just wanted to ask you to share. I know you mentioned it a couple of times, but if you would like to share about the course that you've got going right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And also Missy's YouTube channel too. She's chronicling her postpartum experience. And she's an amazing baby wearer. So for anyone who has questions around how to do the baby wraps, Missy's your go-to. Missy, do you want to touch a little bit on that? And then I know you do have an appointment.
Yeah, you can follow me on my Instagram. I do lots on there. It's Holistic Mama Life. Or you can, my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Missy Ray. I think it's in the description or here in my bio. And so I've got my first video. I just have to upload it, but I'm going to kind of walk through my postpartum journey, because I do have a diastasis separation. So I'm going to talk about that and what I'm doing to bring that back together, in addition to just getting real and talking about postpartum. So for any mamas who are in that space or soon to be in that space, I'll be doing that. And then a lot of baby wearing stuff to come. I just got an ambassadorship with a German baby wearing company. So I'll be doing some more tutorial videos, and I'm really passionate about helping mamas get their babies on their bodies so they can enjoy life, especially if you have other little kids. So
yeah.
Thank you for that. What's your YouTube channel called again?
It's, if you just do, youtube.com/Missy Ray.
R-A-E.
I'm so grateful that you're documenting that right now.
Hopefully there'll be a good amount of baby poop and milk faces and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so then for my online program, it's an 8-week program. The mission is to help women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. So over 8 weeks, there's 2 modules a week. There's a live call with all of us together every week. And then there's also a one-on-one session. We do a deep dive into really understanding the fundamentals of what the hormones are, how they work, and also really addressing the underlying. If you want your hormones to be balanced, you need to address your gut health, your adrenal health, your liver health, and your thyroid health. So we go through each of those chapters. I'm a big believer in shifting the energy and shifting those belief patterns that are no longer serving us. So every week is really going deeper into what are those beliefs and how do we shift them. It's small, it's intimate right now. I have 4 women and I'm capping it at 6. So there's no flashy website. There's no landing page. You'll see the link. All you have to do is schedule a call with me. You can enter the form and I'll send you my free adaptogen elixir recipes. And then we just sit on the phone together. And this is my gift to you. So we have an hour together. You can tell me what's working, what's not working, what's going on in your current experience. If I feel like it's a good fit to invite you into the course, I'll offer that up and you can say yes or no. And if we agree it's not the right fit, Missy and I have been vetting experts for the past 1.5 years with practitioners that work virtually around the world. And so I have lots of tricks in my back pocket, and I can offer you the direction that I think would best serve you to create the reality that you're wanting to create, so that we can all live in our mind, body, and spirit a great deal of vitality and zest. And so it's really been a love. I feel so in alignment and fed doing this online program. And every week I'm getting testimonies that are like, just make me giddy to hear the results that women are experiencing and the bonding and the transformation that takes place. It's really an amazing journey.
I can feel the magic of it just listening to you talk about it. Sounds like a powerful course. I'm so grateful that you put that together and that you're offering it.
Yeah.
And Maraya has amazing intuition. So I would say schedule that call, because she's really fun to talk to, but she also has really good intuition and will help steer you in the way that's right for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I've learned to listen better.
Yeah, I think you both are really wonderful women. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and know that you're out there being awesome and empowered and helping empower other women. I'm just so grateful to be sharing the planet with you too.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
And if you want to join the Beyond the Red Tent membership, I gave you the link, and we're offering up that 20% discount. If you buy the full year, 20% off, pretty sweet. And you can come and and get some love every week. We interview amazing experts. This last week was a naturopath who practiced homeopathy. This week there's a sex expert. Then we have following week 2 physicians that have developed a program called REST, which goes in and kind of reprograms brain to reset our experience with trauma. We've got
Mariah's doing it all without me while I'm on maternity leave. You're awesome.
I say we because she's still just involved. Missy's in maternity, but although she came on for this, so thank you for that, Missy. I got you covered, my friend. I've got you covered.
You. I know you do. Thank you for having us, Angel.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a good appointment with your midwife and that you really get to just sit and enjoy that time with that beautiful baby.
I am. I'm going to.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode. Thank you so much to Missy and Maraya for your time and your energy. And I hope everybody has a beautiful day. And we'll see you for another episode. Aloha.